Hi, I'm Laverne Dalgleish. I'm the Executive Director of the Air Barrier Association of America. And what I'd like to do today is just give you an overview of Housewraps and how it works. What I want to cover is what a Housewrap is, what functions does a Housewrap perform, what are the performance requirements for Housewraps, what are the building code requirements for Housewraps, and some of the basic issues on installation. So what we want to cover today is what is a Housewrap. It's basically just a thin membrane. The thickness is going to be between 5 and 15 milliliters thick. It's going to come in a wide variety of lengths and widths for your particular application. The basic material is a polyolefin, and it's either going to come in spun bonded or cross-woven, or it could even come in just a plain film. The primary functions of Housewraps are to really resist water. And so it's a hydrophobic type of material, and it's designed to shed the water and not absorb any of the water. It can provide secondary weather membrane in a building assembly, and it also provides a water management function, and that's a combination of deflecting water from the building and also helps channel the vertical flow of water down the side of the wall. The other function it provides is the vapor diffusion control, and it allows walls to dry. So you're not going to run into any problems with a buildup of moisture within the wall assemblies. And you're going to be able to combine Housewraps with a wall assembly, which will allow, in that particular environment, for it to be able to dry to the outside. Another function that it provides is air leakage control. And so it's going to reduce the air permeance of the material. Some of the Housewraps will act as an air barrier material. All of the Housewraps will act as an air retarder. To act as an air barrier material, you need to meet the requirements set forth by the Air Barrier Association of America, which is 0.02 liters per second per meter squared. That is the minimum resistance to be called an air barrier material. Just a word of caution, if you are going to use your product as an air barrier material, it's very important that you follow the instructions by the manufacturer, because there's a number of installation requirements for it to become a true air barrier. It has also some secondary functions, and two secondary functions it can provide is being the face, either in a vertical chamber in a ventilated cladding system, or if you are using a rain screen principle in your application, then it's also going to provide that air barrier and the drainage plane behind your cladding system. It also reduces airflow within the wall cavity. Some of the building codes, like Minnesota, have a requirement for wind washing barriers. And what wind washing barriers is where air will come in from the outside, go into the wall assembly, and exit to the same side. Although the air doesn't come into the building, it will reduce the insulation value of any fibrous insulation because of the air flowing through it. And if it's part of a total air barrier assembly, an air barrier assembly is going to reduce the drafts, it's going to increase the comfort, and it's going to reduce energy loss by the amount of heated air you need or cooled air that you need in your building. In the water flow barrier function that it provides, it's really key to the success of your wall assembly. And so by keeping your wall assembly and directing the water to be shed to the outside, you are not going to run into problems with water degradation of your wall assembly. Water vapor diffusion, again, allows the water moisture that's in your wall assembly to dry to the outside. It also is going to reduce the potential for wetting and increase the drying potential of your building assembly. With the water vapor flowing in the direction of drying, this will keep your wall dry over the period that you need it to do. Durability is an important characteristic of Housewrap 2 because the way it's made, it will resist handling damage, whether this be on the job site or during installation. The Housewrap material is going to be subject to the weather conditions on the construction site until it's covered up with the cladding system. So having a more stronger membrane, you're going to find that you'll have less damage due to wind. All the materials are coated to provide an ultraviolet degradation reduction in that so that it will properly function through it. It's going to also resist common job site chemicals, and it's also going to resist the expansion and contraction of the material through the wetting and drying cycles and heating and cooling cycles. So as a summary in the performance benefits of a Housewrap, it has water resistance, it has air resistance, it has a range of water vapor permeance, it has tear resistance, it has UV resistance, and it's got the drainage capability of the material. Some of the construction benefits that you will receive with Housewrap is most of the manufacturers will have markings on them for installation. It'll tell you where to do the nailing and the widths. Most of the materials that you buy will be fairly light. You're going to have a range of about 7 to 28 pounds per 1,000 square feet. So it's going to be easier for the installers to handle them on the job site. And depending on your application and your installation methods, you're going to be able to choose from a wide variety of widths of rolls and also for lengths of rolls for whatever your installation needs are. Now, if we take a look at the building code requirements, the main requirement that we're going to have here is for a water-resistant barrier. And as a code requirement, this applies both to new construction and also to remodeling. And if we took a look at one of the requirements, which is for stucco, conventional stucco, you're required to have 2 layers of grade D paper over a wood sheeting, or to have 1 layer over a foam plastic sheeting. In both these cases, the Housewrap material will provide the functions that you're looking for and meet the building code requirements. So they're recognized under both the IBC and the IRC as being a water-resistant barrier. And to be able to prove as a manufacturer that they meet the requirements, they would go through the evaluation process of the ICC evaluation service. And the acceptance criteria for Housewrap material, or for water-resistant barriers in general, is AC38. If we take a look at what the definition of a water-resistant barrier is, it's a material that is intended to perform as a secondary weather barrier protection behind an exterior cladding, which provides a means to resist penetration of liquid water that penetrates behind the exterior coverings or claddings. And so if we take a look at the requirements in AC38, there's 4 main requirements that a manufacturer will need to meet. First of all, will be dry tensile strength. Second will be water resistance. Third would be water vapor permeability. And finally, pliability or flexibility of the material. And so if we take a look at dry tensile strength, there's 3 ASTM standards that the manufacturer can choose depending on how their material is made. They can choose one of them, and they have very particular requirements based on that standard. For water resistance, again, there's a choice of 3 water resistance standards that they can meet. Since this is a real critical function of a Housewrap, they can go to D779, ASTM D779, AATCC 127, or CCMC 07102. Once they meet the requirements that is listed in any one of these 3 standards, again, they would meet the acceptance criteria. Water vapor permeance, in this case, there's a minimum requirement of 5 perms to be met, and the test method is ASTM E96. Pliability or flexibility of the material, what the manufacturer must meet is they have to bend it over 1/16 of a diameter mandrel at 32 degrees Fahrenheit and not have any cracking on that. Now, Housewraps will be exposed at least during the construction period, so there's a need for them to resist weathering. And the weathering is provided by 2 things, by UV exposure and also by accelerated aging. In the UV exposure, they expose it for 210 hours, which is 21 hours a day 10 hours a day for 21 hours. And also, too, for the accelerated aging, there's 25 cycles where it is oven dried, it's soaked in water, and it's air dried, and it goes through that cycle again for 25 times. In addition to the minimum physical property requirements for AC38, for a manufacturer to be accepted by the building code, there's a number of other submissions, which is packaging, installation, instructions, description material, and so on. Now, we want to cover a few main points as far as the Housewrap installation. And since it comes in a wide variety of rolls and various lengths, what you want to try and use is the longest roll that is possible for your particular application. And so you would start and you would lay it flat against the wall. What you want to do is try and not have any wrinkles in and to keep it vertical. You want to start off your first roll so that it's approximately 2 or 3 inches below the bottom sill, and then walk your way around the house with it. You want to install it with the printed side out. just to make sure that you have the water-resistant characteristics on the outside, and try and have it as straight and plumb as possible. When you come to an inside corner, it's very important that you actually use a straight edge so that it goes into the corner at a 90-degree angle. You don't want any bridging around the corner. And it should also be attached tight against the building so that you don't have any wrinkles or any problems with that. Again, with the outside corners, you want to make sure that it's tightly attached and tightly adhered to the outside corners. One of the key requirements, too, is also for overlapping. For any of the horizontal overlaps, you want at least 2 inches, and you want it in a shingle fashion so the upper layer will always overlap the lower layer. When you come to the vertical joints, you want at least 6 inches of overlap on that side. The other important item is to make sure you cover all the walls. One of the areas that's commonly overlooked is in the gable ends of the buildings. You want to take the house wrap material up into that area too. Now, taping the seams is not required by the code, but it's a good idea to also tape out the seams both for air permeance requirements and also to make sure that the membrane will be durable over the period of time. And of course, for this material to stay attached to the building, you need to use fasteners. The most typical ones would be a plastic-headed nail or staple. You can also use roofing nails in common staples if you need to. Your spacing will always be 16 or 24 inches, depending on what your stud locations are. And then the vertical spacing would range anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches, depending on the manufacturer and how it's going to be used. You always want to make sure that whatever nailing fasteners that you're using, that you're putting them right through the outside sheathing into the framing membranes. When you come to a window, you want to use the inverted eye method, where basically you cut the material and then you would fold it around the window opening and fasten it in place. You're also required by code to integrate the water-resistant barrier or the house wrap material in with your flashing materials. And this is a very key component so that you're tying the house wrap, the window, and the flashings all together, and again, making sure that everything is shingled to the outside. There's a number of manufacturers that produce a house wrap material. Any of these manufacturers can be contacted to get further information from it. The Air Barrier Association of America is providing a better tomorrow by providing education today on both water-resistant barriers, house wraps, and air barrier materials.